So we know for a fact that Ruto is responsible for issuing the orders of shoot to kill against peaceful and armed protesters. Does he need a dialogue to deal with that issue? Does Ruto need to dialogue with anyone to deal with extrajudicial killings and reckless use of firearm against unarmed civilians? Of course not. Does Ruto need a commission or a committee or a task force to, to fire his corrupt ministers? No. Does Ruto need a task force to dissolve his government? No. Does Ruto need a task force to deal with impunity? No. Did Ruto need a task force to reconstitute the IEBC? No. So why did he wait this long? In any event, he has not reconstituted it. And we know for a fact that given the uprising of the Gen Zs, Ruto is mortally wounded. Ruto knows that in 2027, if we were to reach there, and I would suggest we don't, he would be toast. Kenyans would not be voting for him. So what is he trying to do? He's trying to choreograph a vessel, a vehicle, an outfit that can deliver a, a presidency on a silver platter. As Tony correctly stated, he has completely bought the National Assembly. So there are no checks and balances coming from the institution that is supposed to keep him under check. He has threatened and bought a significant portion of the judiciary. So the rule of law is a myth, a fictitious wish by many people. Ruto knows that the only check now he has are the young people on the streets. And he would like to cripple the young people by bringing PR stunts, choreographing task forces, illegal ones, and committees. And of course, the conman and his associates are always ready to assist them. Now, I have heard many people speak, including Ruto, and they talk about violence. We know for a fact that Kenyans that have been protesting have not been violent. We know that for a fact. We know that for a fact because the first 2 days of protest were very peaceful, with the exception of the police shooting and butchering people. We know for a fact that the demand initially was because of overtaxation and because of Finance Bill 2024. But as a result of Ruto's unbridled, atrocious response, the people have had no reason not to demand more. And right now, the demand on the street is that Ruto must go. So Ruto comes back and tells us he cannot go because he was elected and that his term is 5 years. But Ruto forgets that there is history in front of him that contradicts him. As I have said many times, Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya vests the power on Kenyans to recall Ruto at any time and take back the power they donated to him as their representative and exercise it directly themselves. And there are precedents. And I'm going to go through the precedents so that we disabuse them of this notion that people cannot do this. And the precedents are not just in Kenya, they're all over the world. The first popular revolution in the world was in 1789, May 5th, 1789, in France. And that revolution took 5 years. It started on May 5th, 1789, and it lasted up to November 9th, 1799. So these people who are saying if the Gen Zs were not able to effect their revolution the first few days, then it is lost, they cannot succeed, are wrong. Because even the French did not do theirs in one day. They did not execute the French Revolution in 1 week or 2 weeks or 1 month. It took 5 years to effect. Now, there are many that have taken a shorter period of time. And I'm only going to go through popular revolutions, not military ones, because that's what they want to suggest. That anybody who wants to remove them is looking to inflict violence or to use arms in order to remove him, that it is undemocratic and it is unconstitutional. The French Revolution was done by people on the street, and there was no use of weapon. Closer home, the Sudanese protests against al-Bashir dictatorship in December 2018 to April 11, 2019, 4 months, were also peaceful and did not involve the use of weapons. But al-Bashir, who was 1,000 times stronger than Ruto and had been in power for 30 years and was a military man, was removed from power. And he was removed peacefully without violence. Yes, people would say later on the military got involved and caused chaos. But those chaos were not caused by the people. And it is not always true that the mistakes that are made in other countries will be repeated in another country. Now, let's go to Burkina Faso, also an African country, which happened, the protest happened between October 21st to October 31st and removed Blair Compaore. This one took 10 days. Again, a dictator who had been in power for more than 30 years was removed by people on the streets. Let's go to the Philippines, 1986, February 22nd to February 25th, 3 days protest against Ferdinand Marcos, peacefully removed a dictator, a tyrant, without any uh, any gun being used. Let's go to Sri Lanka. Just the other day, March 2022 to July 2022, 4 months, they removed their tyrannical, their main tyrant, and he had to fled the country. Let's go to Romania in 1989. A dictator called Nicolae Ceausescu, again, was removed by police, by public peaceful protests. In other words, what am I saying? What I'm saying is that Kenyans must learn that we have historical precedents where a president that has become rogue, that does not respect the rule of law, that has abrogated the constitution, that subverts the rule of law, that has tried now to castrate all institutional mechanisms of accountability, can only be brought to account through protests, peaceful, huge protests. There is no reason to dialogue with this man because he has already demonstrated that he's not interested in having a discussion. If he was interested, he would have not unilaterally constituted a committee to have a discussion with the thugs and conmen and purported to have power to appoint 152 people to have a discussion, a monologue with him, a meeting that he chairs as the main culprit that has inflicted harm on Kenyans. He wants to chair this team. Also, he would not have unilaterally abrogated the rule of law and then decided that he constitutes a task force to audit debts that were acquired illegally, and then appoints one of the creditors, a representative of the IMF, to chair that team. Even after the people have told him, you are wrong, this is illegal, and the courts have also issued orders, interim orders, telling him that he cannot continue, he was still making an assertion yesterday and today that those teams will continue to work. So Ruto is incorrigible, is irredeemable, is rogue, cannot be reformed, cannot change, and must be removed from power. So I will end there and say that my suggestion, in a nutshell, is that because of historical context, I believe Kenyans should be holding these demonstrations daily. And I believe Kenyans should be chasing after senators, MPs, cabinet secretaries, principal secretaries, senior bureaucrats, so that they cannot even go to their offices. We must make the country ungovernable wherever we are, so as to make this government fall so that we can go for fresh elections. That is not calling for chaos. That's calling for order, because chaos is the second name of this regime. I will end it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. for your contribution. And so I have two questions for you. First, I have a comment when talking about how people have been killed. There's an incident that actually occurred where, the name and the number of the policemen who murdered Kenyans was circulating online. And there's a Kenyan who called and asked him why he was killing the people. And he's on record. He was recorded saying, I'm sorry I did not shoot you too. So this shows, the level of confidence some of these people have while killing Kenyans. The policemen, nothing has happened to these policemen, and I think I posted about it in the morning and tagged also IPOA. I would like to request everybody else who's in the space and can help to really try to find a way that at least people who are working in the forces, or what has happened until now, just some justice can be received for the victims, because it cannot be that the police were supposed to protect, even unethically, after killing somebody, go ahead and say to the citizen who's complaining that the only regret they have is why they didn't shoot. The question I have for you, Dr. Miguna, before I move to Dr. Mutunga, talking about the task forces, under normal circumstances, it is the opposition that should try to stop the ruling party. Do you believe that if the opposition was working in Kenya, they would be able to stop, or do you think they would still be outnumbered with the numbers that the current ruling party have? Just 1 minute, and then I give the mic to Dr. Mutunga.
Oh, thank you, Madge, and thank you for that anecdote. Um, if the opposition was working as an opposition, by this time they would have brought a motion of impeachment. But you see, they're not even talking about impeachment. If the opposition was working as an opposition, they would have joined the Gen Zs and the millennials on the streets demonstrating against Ruto. But they have not done that. If the opposition was working as an opposition, they would have opposed Ruto publicly, consistently, and throughout, very loudly, telling him that he had no power to deploy the military on the streets, that that was illegal, that he had no power to form the task forces, and they would never have joined Ruto in calling for dialogue. But as you can see, the so-called consultation was between Ruto and Raila Odinga only. Even Kalonzo Musyoka is complaining that he was not involved in the discussions. So we do not have a body, an animal we can call the opposition. What we have in Kenya is an animal we cannot describe. It's not an opposition. And these so-called leaders are not leaders. These are organized mafia, organized cartel. In fact, I was pleasantly surprised today in the morning. Somebody sent me a clip of a former spokesman of Moi who called them just that. So imagine if the former spokesperson of Moi, the dictator that terrorized us for 24 years, can look at this man and say, they're all the same. These are all cartels. They belong to one club, and even after they retire, they will continue to loot public resources because they have passed laws that guarantees that they keep stealing. So what do we need? We need a reset. We need to transform our political, legal, and cultural infrastructure so that we remove from the system this continuous culture of impunity and exploitation. So no, the short answer is no, we don't have a normal opposition. And if we did, yes, they would have brought this government to account.
Thank you so much. So my assumption is that the current opposition in the country is the population and the Gen Zs plus every other citizen that's protesting out there. Okay, so now, Dr. Did you want to say something before I go to Dr. Mutunga?
I wanted to agree with you.
Okay.
The Gen Zs right now and the millennials on the street is the opposition.
Thank you. Dr. CJ Mutunga, over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that what happened yesterday, is a great thing, because in this country there's been a narrative that I've always myself found opportunistic and historical. The narrative that the two factions, that the two ruling class factions, within them, there is one that is a lesser evil. There are people, academics, politicians and others who basically advance this narrative whenever there are elections. That of the two factions, let's choose the lesser evil. And I think it's unacceptable, because if who chooses between evil? It's nobody chooses, between evil. And what happened yesterday is what we have been saying all along, that these two factions and their political parties are basically birds of the same political feather. Okay, and they come together when their class is challenged, and that's what has happened. So I hope going forward, this narrative that sees the various factions, and these factions are grounded on monetization and ethnicity. That's how they organize politics, and they also share these values. Well, they are not values, evils of corruption, stealing resources, wasting resources, and we're talking about a dictatorship that is going to be 61 years old in December. Okay? And I think you remember there was a time when Moi said that, well, Kanu will rule you for 100 years. They have already ruled us for 61. The people who you saw meeting yesterday, they are all orphans, of the Kanu dictatorship. There is not a single one of them, that can claim that they are not part of that 61-year-old, dictatorship. So, Hillary was right when he talked. I don't know whether it's Hillary or somebody else. I guess it was Kingston, when he talks of self-preservation and survival. Okay, those are great words about classes, that They come together for self-preservation and survival. So that's important to know. And the other thing that made me very, very happy was the demand by the Gen Z that they were going to occupy World Bank and IMF. Because in terms of politics, you have to connect the foreign interest with the people who rule us, okay? And analyze very, very clearly why our leaders or these two factions are enslaved by foreign interests, and why they take, orders from foreign interests, and they've never uh, uh, participated in any public participation. Okay, look at the case of Haiti. Okay, we were not consulted. Look at the case of Palestine. We were not consulted. When the courts say that police officers can be, deployed in Haiti, it's unconstitutional. That particular court order is disobeyed. And in my books, if you are going to talk about the rule of law, then any government that subverts the rule of law is illegitimate. So it's very, very, very important that, as Miguna says, as a people demonstrate, as mass action goes on, it's very, very, very important to make that connection, because that connection is important, in my view. So the so the other thing, and this is now talking to the well, before I do that, let me talk about task forces, and I give some history. I'm not going to give it the way Miguna has brilliantly given it in terms of dates and so forth, because I haven't done that work. And thanks Miguna for articulating these popular revolutions and uprisings. So when it comes to task force in this country, there's a history of destructing, movements through the formation of task forces. Okay, and I'll give you examples of a few. When J.M. Kariuki was killed, March 2nd, I think that's when his body was discovered, 1975. The system very quickly set up a parliamentary commission that was headed by somebody called Mwangale, Elijah Mwangale, who was, I think, MP for where Mukiza Kitui was MP. I don't know what that constituency is called. And it's what that parliamentary commission did was to really diffuse the tensions, diffuse the tensions, because people were very angry about JM's murder. The universities took to the streets, and so to diffuse, that particular popular unrest, this commission was quickly formed. When it's reported, nothing was done. Even the parliament tried to change some of the findings, and nothing was done. Then in 91, I think, after the ethnic clashes in Rift Valley, there was a Kiumi commission. A lot of time taken there. people having this hope that there was going to be a solution. Those involved were going to be prosecuted and jailed. Nothing happened. Okay, Ouko, Robert Ouko was killed, I believe, 1990. There was what was called the Troon Commission. They brought this British guy from Scotland Yard, to deal with, to do the investigations. And then there was a commission chaired by the late Chief Justice Kisheru. Richard Quach was in that commission as well, and it was a board commission actually, and the Moi saw exactly where that commission was headed, and it disbanded, and those who are suspected of Ouko's murder were arrested. They were never charged, and there were no prosecutions. I think a lot of the millennials who remember the Work Commission, or even the Gen Z, I think this is 2007. After that election, there was the Work Commission. Okay, and when you look at all those commissions, the common denominator, in my view, is that they were used to diffuse popular uprisings, to make sure that the public anger, dissipated, and that will be it. And they use these task forces, like the Ouko thing. If those of you remember, Ouko was supposed to have shot himself in the leg and doused himself with acid and burned himself. That was basically the theory that the government advanced. So task forces, commissions of inquiry, whenever there are issues, and Miguna made this point, who appoints them? It's the culprits, the people that we suspect are the criminals between what has happened. Okay, so it's we should reject them. The other thing that is historical in terms of demonstrations and mass action over years is the fact that the criminal elements, people have talked about goons, they've talked about criminals. What we have known all along is that within the police force, there is always a criminal gang. And that gang invariably reports to the president and not to their superiors. And they have been dangerous. Those of you who are of my generation who remember the famous Gorokos, they were supposed to be taking care of the cattle wrestling, yes, in certain areas. They didn't do that. In fact, they spent a lot of time in the 70s trying to intimidate President Moi to resign, and they were involved in what was called the Change the Constitution movement during that period, so that President Moi would not automatically succeed Jomo Kenyatta in the event he died in office. And the others, you must have heard of Kwekwe, the flying squad. And even the current one, I think, is called Rhino. They have names. And the politicians themselves have militia. Okay, you must have heard of Raila's Men in Black. Okay, you must have heard, or you might not have, but a lot of people of my generation would know that in 1997, Ngumo had a militia called Jesh la Mzee that terrorized us during the mass action during that period. So when the president talks about criminals and the gangs, is not telling the truth. And I honestly, I don't think if he tells the truth, it must be by accident, and even that one, I wouldn't believe it. So the gangs and the Gen Z have seen this clearly, that these people join the demonstrations and they do stuff, and the police seem to to protect them. And so the of course they are deployed to completely make people angry against the peaceful demonstrators, because they'll say, oh, these people are destroying property, they are stealing and so forth. And it's wrong for us to accept that dialogue or that argument, because a government that cannot protect property and lives actually is illegitimate. And that's a legal position as well, a political as well as a political one. If you are in government and you cannot support, protect lives and the property of the citizens, then you are illegitimate. And there is a lot of evidence that we have seen where the police, watch as people, commit crimes. So this narrative about gangs and whatnot, okay, if the state was actually protecting the demonstrators from the gangs and making sure that the gangs don't steal or destroy property, then I'll be persuaded. But they are the ones who resurrect them, because those gangs are always, there. I mean, we've all known about Mungiki, for example. All right. So that narrative should not actually, be accepted. But I just wanted to finish by, celebrating the Gen Z for expressing, their anger, protesting, this uprising or this revolution. And I look at it also as a generation that is also telling the government that they have to respect constitutions, they have to respect the rule of law, that they have to respect the human rights of Kenyans. And they are talking about the material interests of the youth and the Kenyans. And that's politics of issues for me. And I think it's very, very important. And I think it should be, continued. The Gen Z will have to decide, and I'm sure probably they have already decided, because I know they have political parties and social movements, that particular generation. So basically, we don't need to, to advise you. It's your movement. We glorify it for the reasons that I've given. Go ahead and decide on your political and ideological positions. Make sure you continue, making your political demands, and watch out for politics of division through ethnicity. The factions you are dealing with be very good at organizing politics on the basis of ethnicity and the monetization, and also they know they have the backing of foreign interests. So those are some of the things you have to to watch out. Watch out that narrative. People coming to say, oh well, just work with this faction. The dialogue we are being invited to is a monologue, but to obviously expose you to either manipulation or bribes or whatever. So I think I salute, your, mass action. And I just wanted to finish. Kachoka asked me to comment on Article 241 of the Constitution, that is the deployment of the military under that particular section, article, and the paragraph. I think that, in fact, the paragraphs, they use the wrong paragraph, all right, okay, because and even the ones they try to use, we didn't have an emergency or disaster, okay, in the country. Constitutional mass action under 37, Articles 37 of the Constitution cannot be called an emergency or a disaster. Nor can it, the other C, that paragraph C that Kashoka was talking about Parliament, giving approval. It also says that the military may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya affected by unrest or instability, but only with the approval of the National Assembly. I don't agree that the mass action that were constitutional and that invoked the Constitution and the rule of law can be described as unrest or even instability. I think this one is like when you have some areas, and I think you have some areas in the Rift Valley where there are such deployments. But what was happening, in the last few weeks was not unrest or instability. It was peaceful. It was young people expressing their anger constitutionally, exercising their freedom of expression, assembly, movement. So, in my opinion, what we are being prepared for is a declaration of state of emergency, which is under 58, Article 58 of the, of the 58 of the Constitution. And that, when you look at that, provision, I think it's 58. Yes, it is. When you look at that, article of the Constitution, you will find, it's called state of emergency. You find that the person who does it, okay, it's the president, okay, who declares it, that state of emergency, and of course it lasts for 14 days. Then it can be extended by Parliament for 2 months, and also it's subjected to legal action. The Supreme Court may decide on the validity of the declaration of state of emergency, and that means that citizens can, of course, go to the to the to Supreme Court and challenge the validity of this state of emergency. But I think that's probably where we are headed, and we should be, uh, prepared for it. But even if there is that declaration, as I was said, the conditions are also pretty strict in terms of the timelines, in terms of the the challenge. So I'll stop there, and thank you very much, for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Dr. And yes, just a comment and some few questions before I open now the floor to everyone to just ask questions. Dr. Miguna mentioned not having knowledge, or no, having to be really just, not, having knowledge beforehand about the armory, and was, suggesting that it would be difficult for the average population to know where this is, and so there were comments around, or concerns, that even the parliament, when the demonstrators say they were going to occupy it, that it was indeed understaffed, and of course this is the government to come out and say something about it, but there is an impression that probably the police were not really well prepared, or did not want to. So it was more of, it could be also just a setup. And there's also some news that was going on about the CCTV of the parliament not being found. So these are all information that are really causing anxiety in the population when they think, okay, is there something being hidden? So probably it would be good for people, for the concerned, or the people who have the mandate, to also really inform the citizens, so that citizens do not need to have suspicions. So the question I have for you, so regarding the deployment of the military, as we saw, okay, in your opinion, you say what happened is not exactly an arrest or instability, and we saw that the approval was from the parliament, was actually retrieved after, which was not in line with it. And so what can we do about it at this point? Are we going to, are the citizens just going to wait for it to take the course that it's taking, or is there a way of actually retrieving it back, so that we don't have the military deployment on the side, because that is also causing anxiety in the population? If you can answer to that, then the second question, I see your mic, Kingsman. The second question is yesterday the ruling party and the opposition decided that they're going to form a government of national unity. Does the ruling party legally still have the mandate to do that? Over to you, Dr. Ray. The two questions.
Yeah, I think I tried to explain the article, this article 241, that was used, and you have already said that even the so-called approval they got was what we call retrospective. They didn't go to parliament under that particular paragraph before they did what they did. And I was just arguing that there is no way what was happening could be described as emergency or disaster or unrest or instability. It was a constitutional expression, by the young people, and they they actually, used the supreme law to make those demands. Okay, so they have to be praised for for doing that. Okay, uh, and it's to about the armory that you raised, it's it's a it's not even a matter of our concern. It's blatant lies. Okay, blatant lies that the people who are so peaceful, were also raiding an armory, in parliament, and they were preparing for a coup d'etat. Okay, yeah, it's Kibaki who used to say, and I think he said that, and everybody remembers what he said when his election, 1988, when he was winning during the Q elections, and the presiding officer in Odhaya wanted actually to declare the person who was losing the winner, and Kibaki told the presiding officer, my friend, even rigging elections requires intelligence, and you don't seem to have any intelligence. Those lies that are being told about the Gen Z are lies, and they are lies that are being told by people who are not intelligent. Okay, they are utilitarian. And I think the regime will keep on lying and lying until you accept lies, as truth, and that would be my position. And I think Miguna also had a brilliant case about it. He asked brilliant questions about it. Okay, what has happened, and those questions he was asking, anchoring them, on the state's responsibility to protect our lives and property. Okay, why haven't they investigated? Okay, so I think that would be my position. This invocation of 241, in my view, as I said, is to prepare us, or to test the waters, as we said, to see how we would react, to the deployment of the military. And I've already explained that if that happens, we should be prepared to challenge it. Because the only way I can see, in the old days, of course, a state of emergency would be declared, and there were no limitations and there were no constraints. So, and then people will be basically intimidated that way. And all states want to create fear. Okay, so as we go forward, we should remember what Comrade Julius Wajira has always said. You lose your fear, they lose their power. Okay, so that will actually be our position, and we need to explain it to agency. We'll have to explain it to parents, friends, everybody, that there will be challenges at some point. As I've said, they might challenge their movement on the basis of ethnicity. We have heard this, oh, this is Akiku, this, or this is this, or these people, whatever. And I've seen also that the ethnic militias that were on parade in Eldoret. Those are the kind of things that we should pay attention to. And I just wanted to end by, reminding people who remember the demonstrations that were taking place in the world, Paris, Seattle. There was a young man in that demonstration, and the Gen Z have really been fantastic in their placards and slogans and their demands, and they have also been fantastic in their humor. So this guy was demonstrating, had a T-shirt where he was basically telling, the ruling elite in the world, that at that point the population of the world was 6 billion. Mm? And he said, you're just 60,000, I think he said, but we are 6 billion. Okay, and I think that's the position Miguna was making, that popular uprisings and where people are involved, all people are involved, and they are peaceful, they are unstoppable. And so I wanted to end on that note in answering your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ray, for your response. Kingsman, please take a go, and then we open the session for Q&A.
I think mine was just an addition to what Dr. Dr. Mutunga has touched on, and what also Dr. Miguna spoke about. Mine was just on the utterances of one of members of parliament who was overheard in some local stations talking about that if he was in charge of this country, or if he was the president by now, he should have killed as many Gen Zs as possible by killing at least 5,000 Gen Zs a day. And as we are speaking as of to now, no action has been taken against him. And as the Daktari was saying, these things that they are mentioning, I don't know, they have an armory in parliament. Is it that they are preparing us for something that we don't know? Dr. Miguna, back to you.
Oh, thank you, Kingsman. I think we are going to open the floor for all the other comments. But maybe Ruto was just trying to scare people. Maybe, some of these people are cowards. It's possible that there is even no armory at Parliament. I mean, why would there be an armory in Parliament? I didn't know about it. That was the first time I was hearing about it. Parliament is not a military installation. So you would have police officers that are guarding it, but an armory, that's a new word. It could be that in order to instill fear on Kenyans and the Gen Zs and millennials, for example, he wanted to lie to say that there is an armory so that people think that, we don't go back there because they could slaughter all of us. And of course, now you make this statement, you remind us of Farah Maalim, the MP for Dada, who basically said that he would commit mass murder at an industrial scale if he was president. I mean, this is done in the midst of the protests. And after so many people have lost their lives, so many people have been abducted, and some are still missing. He says this. And he says this without any kind of uproar, no condemnation from his fellow legislators, no condemnation from Ruto himself. Actually, significantly, no condemnation from Raila Odinga and the ODM leadership. Like, this is unbelievable. And of course, he hasn't been apprehended. If for nothing else, if Ruto was intelligent and had emotional intelligence, He would have done and said something. What I get from all this is that we actually give these people more credit than they deserve. These guys are not intelligent at all. These guys actually have no clue how to manage even a chicken coop. Ruto is supposed to be a chicken seller and probably a chicken grower, or what do you call somebody who rears chicken? But he does not have the intelligence of chicken. Even chicken would know that you don't do that. That after this attack that his goons have had on the people, you don't go there and have your people threatening them, boasting about what you've done, congratulating the police for killing people. But that's what they have done. Essentially, what they are saying, well, there's nothing you can do. You did a protest, I killed some of you, I will kill more, and there is nothing, there's nowhere I'm going. I think that this kind of arrogant chest beating should have the counter reaction by the Gen Zs through huge protests to show him that this country does not belong to you and does not belong to these people that you control through public resources. Because to tell you the truth, what I saw there yesterday, the men, and they were all men, they were all old men. See, a lot of us think that some of us are of the generation of those men. Most of those men, except Ruto and probably Kingi, are even of my generation. But they were all men, old men, very old men. And there is nothing about, I'm not complaining about their age, but I'm saying, can you imagine having a meeting at Kenyatta International Conference Center about the crisis that has been brought by popular protests of very young people, teenagers mostly, and you don't have even one Gen Z and one millennial amongst you, and you don't have a woman, not one woman? Like, he has women in his cabinet. He has women in the bureaucracy. He has PSS and whatnot. He has women in his administration. But he couldn't think of one single woman that could attend that gathering. They couldn't think of any youth, even, even the ones they have bought, even the most useless like Itumbi. They couldn't have that. They couldn't even have Otero that they bought the other day. They couldn't have a lie. They couldn't have any of these people. Of course, a lie is not a youth, but I mean, they couldn't have anybody that looks young. That's the kind of arrogance that you have. That you can act.
Even Karen Nyamu Daktari, continue.
Correct. They couldn't even have the socialite bimbos. I mean, these are the people that they are normally comfortable around. The empty-headed, beautiful looking flower girls and boys. They couldn't even have that. So the kind of arrogance, the kind of tone deafness, the kind of entitlement that you have in this country cannot change until we do something so radical that it would just send all crooks either to committee or into exile or into hiding permanently for the rest of our lives. Nothing else is going to sort out this problem. And you saw it yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harry. Yes, the picture or the show, it was not diverse. I agree with you. And as we open the Q&A session now, let's start with Anna, Ndolo, Joel, and Nelson in that order, 2 minutes each. And the main speakers can feel free to chime in between. Otherwise, we will just go through and answer their questions after the 4 are through. Anna?
Thank you much, Hillary King's Daktari. Today we have another Dr. Tani and everybody else on the space. To be honest, Marge, I don't have a question, but I wanted to add on to the African Union chairmanship. seat. I wanted to bring another dimension to it, of which is a fact. First, we've seen Raila giving a speech in regards to that and said, I was approached and I was told that you befit that chair. So for that reason, that's why I am going to do it. There is the race for that chair was actually between Ruto and Fozia of Somalia, Dr. Fozia of Somalia. Now, in the mix of this, 6 months later, some deal was done between Ruto, the Djibouti guy, president of Djibouti. We've seen Ruto giving Djiboutis a free visa and all that. So the Djibouti aspect came in when they saw that maybe Fuzia is getting a lot of momentum, and this is information coming from Somalia. Now, they asked the guy in Djibouti to come in as a competitor as well for that chairmanship seat. And then Fozia was told to step down by the president of Somalia. When she asked why, and this is after doing their campaign 8 months down the line, 7-8 months down the line, Fozia is told, remember, Djibouti came into the mix 6 months after Raila and Fozia of Somalia. Now, Djibouti, currently the story has, and from that Fozia herself, we hosted a space for her, said she was called by the president of Somalia and the prime minister, and she was told there is somebody else who we are leaving this seat for, so you need to step down. And she said, okay, but for what are the reasons? Are we exchanging something for our nation? In that order, I will step down, but give me a reasonable reason. I've put a lot of effort, time, money, campaigns. At this time, Fozia was also backed up by the parliamentarian in Somalia. She had a full backing of the parliament. She had full backing of everybody when she was submitting her applications. When that happened, I will finish much. When that happened now, the reason Djibouti is coming into the mix is for this lady to step down, and then Djibouti does not have, the person they've put into the competition does not have a chance against Ruto. So this way, against Odinga. So
Yeah,
this
thanks,
way,
thanks.
Ruto gets rid of Odinga.
When you said Ruto the whole time, I was thinking, okay, what does she mean? But thanks for correcting that.
No,
Yes,
it's
thank you.
Odinga.
Yeah.
Yes, correction. Yeah. So this way, the guy from Djibouti does not have a chance of winning the seat against Raila. So this thing is being cooked from a lot of aspects. For those who don't know, it's not only within Kenya that Ruto is told to step on to vie for this chairmanship, but it's gone to the extent of asking a Somalian candidate to step down who had a very good chance. Remember, this seat, actually, it's over how many years that a woman has not sit on that. So she looked a lot favorable for a lot of countries. And when they saw that threat, and Ruto wants to make sure that Raila gets to that chair and he's out of his way and out of his neck. So they approached Djibouti. And now, as we speak, the lady from Somalia, her president has refused to give her the endorsement letter. So that means he is going to be out of the contest. And this to guarantee a chairmanship for Ruto, for Raila. So Ruto is going to a lot of extent. It looks like Ruto and Raila are now, I think, Dr. You've been vindicated. They are all in the same bed. They're all in the same group, and they're going to even far countries out of Somalia to make sure, out of Kenya, to make sure Ruto goes to the AU. And there's a lot more that they're cooking for the AU and within those chair. It's not just Ruto, Raila to be on that seat, but there is more that they need to cook up. So I think this gang, they're far deep. They're far dangerous than we think. They're more connected than we think. And there is a lot much worse that they're doing, even outside Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. I think I'll give, Dr. has raised his hand. He can get back to you, and then I'll say what I wanted to say to that. Over to you, General.
Yeah, Maja, I just wanted to say to Anna, this seat is irrelevant, and it is irrelevant to Kenyans, and it is useless. I have described it as equivalent to the Luo Council of Elders. It amounts to nothing with no power, so it's irrelevant. And number two, what happened yesterday was actually a very good thing. Many people would agree with me that having all this organized mafia, the cartels and the conmen in one basket is an excellent thing, because now it has sorted out all these kind of shenanigans. Kenyans can see who their enemies are. I've been talking about this thing for years, more than 10 years. And there are a lot of people who are abusing me, dismissing me, and hurling all manner of epithets. And yesterday they say, aha, finally, we now understand what you've been saying. So I think that Ruto has actually solved our problem, Ruto and Raila, by getting into one basket, something that they were not even able to do in 2018 when Raila got into bed with Kenyatta. You see, when Raila got into bed with Kenyatta, they left Ruto outside and they were conspiring against him and fighting him. So that way, the elite were fractured and they were confusing Kenyans through that fracture. Now they are all in one basket and we need to bury them all together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. For that. Yes, just 1 minute to that. Ideally, if we did not have the corruption that we have in the country, I would expect the President of the Republic to be street smart. That means that even if they're knocking out Somalia, knocking out Djibouti, but for the interest of Kenya, that will be okay. If they're doing it in a legal way, that's just belongs to the street smartness of what one would expect of a president. And I wouldn't have issues with them because other countries also protect their interests. It's only us who are not used to putting our interest first. So the chess they're playing there, of course, they're playing it under different circumstances. But if all factors were in order, I actually want to have a president who's street smart and knows how to put the interest of Kenya out there. Ndolo, then Nelson and Joel.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Loud and clear.
Thank you. Dr. Miguna and Dr. William Mutunga, thank you very much for the conversation and for holding the spirit of patriotism and for being there even when people didn't believe you. Mine is a question of the general system in Kenya. I come from engineering background, and we have so many things, and you can see right now even engineers are agitating to occupy Engineers Board of Kenya. There is, I can give an example. In 2018, we had what is called the engineers rules of 20. It was by then it was a draft 2018, and they asked for comments, and comments were given. I remember we submitted comments. I myself wrote in the comment and submitted as a group. And unfortunately, when the rules were gazetted in the Kenya Gazette, we did not have the comments taken into consideration. Now, this has caused a lot of problems. Now, this is just an example that most of the public participation processes in the country are just a show. In the end, just to show that we as an institution, we have gone through the public participation process. However, the real concerns of the people are never taken into consideration. This could be a problem in all systems all the way from Mashinani up to the national. And we saw it during the finance bill, where last year actually was even worse when they passed the finance bill without even having to look at the concerns of the people, cost of living and the rest. So this Mtadu, I think in the Luo culture where you come from, in the Nyando region, Kano, they call it Otada. This Otadaness, how do we go against it? How do we go through this Otada system? Thank you.
Thanks. That's taken. Joel and then Nelson. And because we have a lot of speakers, Tony, I see you. Take that before Joel goes. Go on, Tony.
Yeah, very briefly. I wanted to just tell Joel, remember, people get the leaders they deserve. We are concentrating, yes, on the Raila and Ruto issues, but remember, right from the MCA to the MPs, we have elected very poorly as Kenyans. Because in the older days, you had Wangari Maathai, George Anyona, Tom Mboya, Shikuku. There has never been a lack of leadership within the parliamentary buildings and even within civil society. And that's one of the reasons, for example, when these goons tried to destroy the Jay-Z movement, this Sunday there was a concert that showed peace and showed tranquility and brought back the momentum. So remember that if we did not have that leadership this Sunday, people had begun to lose hope with this struggle. So part of the problem we have is the people we elected. I just wanted to put that in.
Thank you so much. Joel, then Nelson.
Thank you so much, Maj and Dr. Miguna, Dr. Mutunga, and Tony. We are really grateful for being here. Now, just a quick one in my 2 minutes. First of all, I'm interested in the word dialogue because it's gonna be prominent in this phase of this revolution. They'll come the politicians, the people in the swamp, because right now we are drowning the swamp. As Dr. Mutunga has mentioned it, we want to drown. These are Kanu orphans, as we saw yesterday. So at this point in time, we are not telling the government to use the approaches of the past, which really never worked. We are simply telling them to deal
Am I
with
the only
corruption.
one who is not hearing anyone?
I can hear him. Dr. Kindly, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't hear him.
Okay, then just be patient. If you cannot hear the next speaker, then kindly leave and come back. Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Joel, kindly continue.
Okay, sorry about that, Dr. Miguna. So I was just saying that, right now it's not the time to use the past approaches in dealing with our problems. We are simply saying that to deal with corruption, to have good governance, to sack corrupt cabinet ministers or secretaries, to stop tribal appointments, bribery and all that, this does not really need dialogue. And right now we have Raila, for example. In all my life, I've always voted for Raila. And from the 2007 general elections, that was a highly contested election, which resulted in significant post-election violence. But later, what happened? Raila chose dialogue at that time and most of us and some of his critics, argued that power sharing deal was more about political expediency and benefiting the political elites rather than addressing the root cause of the violence at that time, which, if I can remember, there were systematic issues about, rigging and all that. Then it came to 2013 elections where there was accusations that the push for dialogue was more about maintaining political relevance and positioning for the next general election, which was coming up in 2017. And then here we had 2017, the same thing. There was a handshake, which really led to BBI, which was a political maneuver to consolidate power and to...
Joel, Just a moment. Kindly allow me to clarify that each speaker is going to speak for only 2 minutes. This is because we have a lot of speakers that are still requesting for the mic. So after 1 minute, I'm going to raise my hand. So for all the speakers who are following, who will speak after him. After 1 hour, after 1 minute, if you see my hand raised up, it means you have another minute to go. I know the 2 minutes are not enough, but please, for all the next speakers, try to really, organize your points so that you can put them across in 2 minutes, and then we'll have more people speaking. Back to you, Joel, as you land. Thank you.
Okay, as I land now, we realize, after all that, this is all about political expediency, consolidating power, and even marginalizing opposition voices. Right now, for me, I feel that is the aim of the political class. The KANU orphans right now, they want to marginalize us. They want to silence the opposition voices. And, it's argued that really this serves their interests, the political elites, rather than addressing the needs of ordinary Kenyans. And as I wind up, there has been deaths, right now, Danzel Onyango Omondi, that was very painful. And the rest, and many others who haven't been mentioned, who haven't been heard. And at this time, the anger really should prick up to the bone, because many people, they're going to use this to silence people. They're going to use deaths. They're going to use abductions. They're going to kill people. And I would just want us to be encouraged by this and not to give up. I'll land there. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Joel. Over to Nelson. Daktari, can you now hear Nelson?
Hi, Dr. Miguna. Can you
Yes,
hear
I
me?
can hear. I can hear.
Great. Continue, Nelson. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Marge. Thank you, Hillary, for this space, and thank you, Daktari, and every other speaker, CJ, Anthony Gashoka, and the rest. I have only 2 points to make, and the first point is, so I have been reading some memoirs of Black revolutionaries from different parts of the world, and there is one quote that has really stuck with me, and the quote goes, "Each generation must, out of relative obscurity, discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. We are the generation he speaks of, and the power is within us, as it was in Fred Hampton, to provoke change and become leaders." So this was after the civil rights movement in the US. And this quote basically says that every generation has its mission, and we have the prerogative to either fulfill it or to betray it. We saw the multi-party fight and other generations that fought for their that fought for their mission, and they won. And right now it's us, the Gen Zs and the millennials, and it's up to us to either fulfill this mission or to betray this mission. And this mission is actually the economic independence of our country, because far too long we have not been independent economically in our country. We've been having extractive institutions instead of inclusive institutions. My second point is what Dr. Miguna extensively explained, so history. But the angle I want to raise is that whenever tyrants face insurrections or uprising, they normally try to meet it with a lot of ruthless they use a lot of force, like we've seen how they killed people in very peaceful protests. And we can draw parallels in history, like from the French Revolution, which Dr. Miguna spoke about. What you need to understand is that when tyrants are faced with this kind of situations, they will always use brutal force to make people to fear. And so that like they brought the army so that people can fear. The night before people were going to State House, they were sending people inboxes, paying people personally. So many people inboxed me from the government. They sent me messages telling me, "Oh, tell those people, if you go to State House you will be killed." So they try to use this kind of mechanisms to survive. But it's all in history, and we can use history just to predict what they will do next. And so this is the French Revolution. They did the same. Muammar Gaddafi did the same. In Romania, same everywhere. There are so many examples. Even in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe did the same exact thing to
Yeah.
yes, Manj.
You've gone past a minute. Yeah, you're not the third.
Okay.
Kindly land. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was my 2 points, and I just want to encourage everyone to do not think that the revolution is dying out. This is just the beginning, and everything you're seeing is as per the script of revolution. And with time, we are going to conquer and to make our generation proud, because this is our mission, to bring economic independence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the previous speakers haven't posed direct questions to the guest speakers. So I'm inviting Eunice and Karani in that order. And so my question would be, of course, no dialogue, no retreat, no surrender. If you could, center your points to that topic, and if you have questions, then just feel free to shoot. 2 minutes each. Please be reminded that we should keep within the 2 minutes, so that at least some more people get the time to speak. Eunice, over to you.
Hi, hello everybody. Can you
Loud
hear
and
me?
clear.
Okay, great. Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Miguna and Dr. Willie Mutunga and Tony and everyone here. Mine is, I am not a politician. I am just a business lady, and all of you who are in business, you know how difficult it is to do business in Kenya. And that's why I'm saying no surrender, and we cannot retreat. And this is my reason. You see, this government, or Ruto, is supported by 4 pillars. Number 1, he was able to put the MPs into his pocket. Number 2 has been the church. Number 3 has been the international community. And number 4 has been the, we can say he has the support of the police, maybe. And one thing that we had managed to do the last 2 weeks was scare the MPs, basically destroying that pillar. And I remember there's a week they could not even speak. And that's why I'm very angry that even, they have come back, they're able to speak with a lot of arrogance, as though we don't mean anything. And I wish there's a way we could stop, especially the mainstream media, from giving them a platform. And we should not give them room to speak to us. They should go and speak and do the things that we are saying that they should do in parliament or wherever they meet. Number 2, I can see they have, I hope they haven't started going to church, because we should not give them that platform. So my point is, let's keep the momentum. And I like the fact that we realize that you see, once we expose them to the international community and they cannot be able to support, or rather they will not get the support of the international community, definitely they are going to listen. When they talk about dialogue, is it what we saw yesterday? And I like what Miguna is asking. No woman, nothing, it's a shame, especially to the male gender and the old generation, to stand all of them, and they cannot even feel shame, and they even take photos to show us that, what, we can do whatever we want. So if we are going to get back our country, we cannot afford to give up, not at this moment. I see this as in 2002, when Kibaki came to power. I was in the university then, I'm a millennial, and we had so much hope. And, we could see citizens arresting the police for bribery and all. And then over time, that momentum just fizzled out. And we've been on a road to, to downhill, back to the dark days and back to the, immoral society whereby nobody respects anyone. We don't value lives. We don't, We don't value what matters. So I think we should not give up, and especially deplatforming the MPs and the leaders. They should not speak to us until we see action. I don't know how that is going to happen, but I think it's our time.
Mhm.
And what I like about this movement is that
Eunice,
it's not.
I'm going to
Yes.
now drastically just stop you. Please, guys. You know,
Okay.
when we are expecting also order from the leaders there, we should also have the order here. You know, it's 2 minutes each, and yeah, so kindly
Okay.
land.